good time to start. Yeah, 3:04. Let's do it.
Great.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for the first webinar on this professional development that we have from the Academy of Emergency Medicine, Emergency Ultrasound for the SAEM. Today, we are honored to have Dr. Josh Goldstein join us today as our first guest speaker. Thank you, Josh. Dr. Goldstein is a professor of emergency medicine at the Harvard Medical School, the vice chair of faculty affairs, and the chair in EM research, and the co-director of the Center for Neurologic Emergency at Mass General Hospital in Boston. He's obviously a superstar researcher in the neurocritical care and the EM critical care research. Has been continuously been funded by NIH since 2009. Has more than 200 peer-reviewed publications. And for purpose of this webinar to talk about that, I have to say he is clearly a treasure in mentoring EM faculty towards their promotions. With his expertise in faculty affairs, he manages promotions for junior and senior EM faculty at Harvard Medical School, which, no need to say, that is not an easy task to do and not easy path to walk. So, but he's been mastering in this and he's been mentoring faculty, and we had a great success with his leadership on this one. And I am the whole team of the Academy of Emergency Ultrasound. We are glad that we have Dr. Goldstein here with us, sharing experience and expertise. And I thank Academy and every one of you guys to be here, and we're all learning from Dr. Josh Goldstein. Thank you.
Thank you for that very kind introduction there, Hamid. And I will go ahead and begin. And let's see if I have the right view. Display settings, let's see. Okay. So first, do you have the right view here? Let me start with that.
Yes.
Fantastic. Good. So first of all, I'd love this talk to be actually to be really directly useful to the actual people watching this. So I would love you to put comments into the chat, questions, and very happy to stop. In fact, what I'd rather do is as we go along, pause and maybe ask questions really specific and useful to you, the audience, even if it's at your specific place. So I'll talk about academic promotions here is where I'm going to focus on. The layers certainly at my place are instructor, assistant professor, associate professor, and professor. There's also, as one climbs the ranks, promotions within the healthcare system that are maybe more clinical or job specific, like division chief, assistant or program director, et cetera. I won't necessarily be focusing on that. I'm really going to be focusing on sort of the academic ladder. But if you want to talk about the other one, just let me know. Put questions in the chat, make it useful, and make it as interactive as possible. So this is sort of going to be the outline of what I'm going to talk about. Navigating promotions, what are they looking for, and who are they, right? And there is a game, and the question is, how well can you understand it? Mentorship. I do want to spend a little bit of time on mentorship, which is how most of us climb the ladder, as we get help from other people who are higher up on the ladder, pulling us up. And then, we'll go through some of the details about how to build your academic career. Yes, there is a game. So Dr. Liu comments that first of all, there's always a game, right? It's just whether we agree, whether people accept that truth, and how the game is played. So building your academic career with scholarship, grants, teaching, lecturing and teaching, you can maybe the same thing, maybe subtly different, and I'll comment a bit on that. So let's begin. Let's start with the rules of the game. First order of business is, what are they looking for? Is there a game? And if so, what are the rules? And so let me just highlight that one of the things I teach our own faculty is it's not a game and don't treat it like one. But but there are whatever you label it, it's rules, and you can make a pretty good case that anything that has rules is a kind of a game. And so one of the things you really want to understand is, what are they looking for? Whether you want to play the game or not, you should really understand what the rules of that game are. So are there requirements for a certain number of years between promotions, either minimum or maximum? I'll pause on this one. For example, I don't expect a lot of basic scientists here, but at least in my school, if you are in the basic science pathway, it's typically there's some number of years, and at that point, you either get promoted or you leave. Those are your only two options. Clinical pathways, you're usually allowed to be a clinical whatever, as long as you keep showing up and doing your shifts, right? But if you're a basic scientist, you either perform or you move out to make way for somebody else who will. So for basic scientists, there may be I better perform. I only have this many years to get promoted. For clinicians, it might be the opposite. In fact, what if you publish 100 papers in 1 year? Can you get promoted in 1 year? And many places might actually have we don't like to promote you 1 year after the other, right? We want you to spend a few years percolating at each position. So if there's a rule, written or unwritten, you'd like to know what it is. Is there some rule on number of papers? Is there some, does this committee care whether the kind of papers you write are original research or case reports or chapters or reviews? Do podcasts count? Do online articles count? Tutorials count? Is somebody out there counting how many talks, how many lectures, how many grants you give? So how many grants you get, sorry. Many places don't have formal rules on all of these. Many places have informal rules or things that people sort of generally expect. So you'd like to see if there is such a thing, what would that be? So what's going to happen at some point, some way, somehow, you're going to make your case to a promotions committee. It might not be you personal, right? It might just be you sending your CV into somebody, and then you're not involved. Somebody else is making your case, or nobody's making your case. They're just reading it. So if, assuming you're not there, which is true in most places, it's your CV they're reading. So you actually care how your CV looks, if that's the case, if it's just going to be you. What are they looking for? Know what they're looking for, and also be thoughtful about how much of that you want to do. So I'm going to move on. Actually, before I move on to that, I'm going to pause here just to highlight, for many people, their CV is something that they just have to do, right? It's not the work. The work is something else. The CV is just is writing down work that you already did. For the promotions committee, your CV is the work. Mostly, they're not reading your actual papers. They're not watching you take care of patients. They're not watching you perform ultrasounds. They're not checking your ultrasounds. So the CV or whatever you're sending in is all they've got. You want it to look nice. You want it to look professional. You want it to look like you're taking your work seriously and like you're taking them seriously. If you're riddled with typos and things don't line up, it looks like you don't give a crap about them or their work, and you're not taking them seriously, right? Think of it like you're applying for a job. And you can think, I already have a job. I shouldn't have to do this bullcrap. That's the wrong way to think about it. You're selling yourself, and every piece of paper should be a work product, and you want it to look good. And it's worth taking the time to style it up if there's room to style it up and make it look nice and make it look like professional work. If you don't have the time to do that, find somebody who can help you. There are places, there are online people, English majors, who maybe you are an English major, right? But there's people who edit books and stuff, and find somebody to help you if need be. But try to spend the time to make your work product, the thing that tells people how great you are, look nice. Now, ideally, when you're building your career, what you want is to just be great, and then that greatness just spontaneously comes across. That's what most of us want. It usually doesn't work that way, but it also doesn't mean you have to check boxes for the sake of checking boxes. I want to highlight this piece here. Writing and publishing things you don't want to publish for the sake of getting gold stars It's fine. We all do it. But for most people, that's not a sustainable path for academic promotions. For most people, a sustainable path is doing things they like to do, that they care about, that they're passionate about. And if there happens to be a way to make that get published, great. And that's sort of the way you think about it. I would say, think hard about what you want in your career. How can you make your career great? And then whatever you're doing that you're passionate about, that you care about, maybe take a moment to think, how could I show somebody how great I am at that thing? What's some sort of metric that they can use? And if it's not one that's obvious to people, make it and then tell it to people. So I'm going to say, for example, what you want is to sell yourself to them. Something vague. I'm an expert in emergency medicine, and I want to get promoted because I'm so great at emergency medicine. For a lot of promotions committees, that's probably not good enough. There's lots of people who do emergency medicine. You can count them, right? Better, I'm an expert in the use of point of care ultrasound in the acute setting. Okay, there you go. Many places need at least one person, or many multiple people, or may have multiple people who are that. But even better, like, what's your brand? What are people in a state hundreds or thousands of miles away from you when they think, I need the world expert in X, I better go to that guy? What are you that you're going to be that person who they think about when they call? I'm an expert in global ultrasound education. I'm an expert in the workup of acute chest pain. And one of my tools for that workup is a point of care ultrasound. These are all things that are really snazzy to promotions committees, because they show that you are an expert in a thing, and that people are going to go to you for a thing. So what can you bring that's special, right? What's the thing that when someone somewhere else says, I need the expert, they think of you, and then focus on that thing. You're writing chapters and reviews on that. You're doing research on that. You're giving lectures on that. Join or start committees on that. Turn down opportunities that are not that thing. You say, sorry, that's not my thing. I appreciate the invitation. And I think that's a good model, because there are some places where if the promotions committee is really just counting papers, and maybe you write a chapter on snake bite injuries, and then you give a lecture on abdominal pain, and then maybe you've given a variety of lectures on something else. That's fine, but it's hard for you to sell that you're an expert on something. Now, if you're an expert on education, then that's great, right? You give tons of lectures on education, and you think about, how do I deliver education? Maybe you're an expert on how to give a great talk. And that's a wonderful thing too. But then think about yourself as that way. And this abdominal pain lecture that I'm going to give, that's just a tool for me to build my skills in how to give a great talk. That's how I think you want to think about that. And along those lines, what if you don't want to do research or give talks or join committees, but you still want to get promoted? Well, I would start with whether you want to get promoted or not. For most people, it's not sustainable to do things you don't like that are just checking boxes. And so, and actually, right along that line, somebody asked Valerie Pierre, how do we navigate turning down opportunities that are not within our niche as junior faculty? I've been advised to say yes to almost everything early on. I'm going to pause for a moment, because that's such a great question. It leaks right into this part, right? What if you don't want to do the thing and they're asking you to do a thing? Well, Dr. Pierre, I will say that let's put this into two buckets. One is somebody you care about and who has power is asking you to do something like as a favor, and this is the person who's going to also give you opportunities in the future. That's one thing. Versus somebody who's not like that, but you're just, in other words, is it career development that you should just accept a bunch of opportunities? Or is it like, what are you getting out of this particular thing? So here's what I would say. It is true as a junior faculty member that if you say, no, I'm too busy to do X, then that person might not think of you the next time they need somebody to do X. Now, if that's your thing, it's kind of a problem. But if it's not, if the person whose research is scorpion bites, and that's all they do is scorpion bites, and they ask you to help them with a scorpion bite chapter, turning them down might not be terrible for you, right? Especially if you don't want to do that. And it is critical. Your time is limited, and so the only way you can succeed is by saying no to things that are not useful to you. So the secret, I would argue, is yeah. Well, first of all, I like Dr. Liu. If you suggest an alternative person, here I would actually say a little bit differently. What I would say is, first, everybody here should have a senior person who is your mentor, who is labeled as your mentor, who on some piece of paper somewhere that says they are your mentor. And then when somebody asks you to do a thing, your answer is always, thank you so much for that wonderful opportunity. But my mentor, Dr. Shakui, says that I'm not allowed to take on any other things unless I talk with him first, because he has so many projects he's got assigned to me that he wants to be really thoughtful about other things I take on that aren't Dr. Shakui's. Then you talk to Dr. Shakui, your advisor, and you want the kind of mentor who will do whatever you want, frankly, and be supportive of you and be thoughtful about, is this your thing or not? And if the two of you agree this is not your thing, then the right answer is either Dr. Shakui reaches out to that person, or you go back and say, God, I'm so sorry. I would have loved to do that scorpion bite. I love scorpion bites. I would love to do that chapter. But this asshole, Dr. Shakui, who's my mentor, said I couldn't do it because he's got me too busy doing these other projects. And he says I don't have time. You want somebody to be your bad cop. I think that's the ideal way to turn down opportunities. You as junior faculty never turn down an opportunity. But what you are doing is having somebody help you manage your time, and they're bad cop and you're a good cop. That's what I would say. And the other advantage to that, I'll say, Dr. Pierre, is that it helps having an outside person sort of think about your portfolio of work. Let's say you've got 5 different chapters that you're in the middle of writing. Nobody has time to do all that. So that person can also help, even if it is your niche, right? There's only so many things you can do efficiently at one time. Maybe you're doing a chapter on something and helping write a grant on a thing using the same text, right? Your chapter on lung ultrasound is also the text for your grant on lung ultrasound, which is also the intro for your paper on this lung ultrasound thing that you're doing, which is also your lecture on lung ultrasound, right? That the same text is serving multiple purposes and you're working on them all effectively simultaneously. That's sort of your ideal state of being. And so ideally you have a mentor who's helping you navigate all that. I like this suggesting an alternative person that's still a higher level. Let's see here. You don't see a higher. The first, when you suggest an alternative person, I think that's great. That's also a good one. Even better if you suggest an alternative person who it is their thing, right, and that it's going to help them to build up their thing. Hamid, if you're a junior and still don't have a specific to your ability, don't miss an opportunity if you clearly see your credit, not just collaborate for the sake of collaboration. I agree with that. Everything you work on, it should be really clear what's your role. It's totally fine to be a middle author on a project as long as there's something that is yours and that Venn diagram overlaps with, right? And this thing you're collaborating on is helping you in your thing that you're sort of a first authoring. What are you getting credit for, and what are you being a leader on? So I'm going back to my talk. So team up with people who do the things you don't want to do. One great opportunity that sometimes comes up is maybe sometimes there's people who spend all their time doing research and they're happy to write papers, but don't like doing the clinical things and hanging around the ED, for example, or don't like giving talks. Maybe team up with that person, or somebody. If you do lung ultrasound and you really enjoy doing that clinically, and somebody else likes writing papers or chapters, team up with them, and maybe the two of you can be co-authors on each other's things. And help each other out. Help with if you just don't want to do any of this stuff, but you sort of have to get promoted. Find people you can help a little bit with their projects to be middle author. Maybe somebody has some study that needs someone to do ultrasounds or help their student do ultrasounds. Maybe you can do the part of it that you like in return for being a middle author. One thing I like is there a medical student or resident who needs to be mentored? Maybe you could be their clinical mentor. Somebody else can be their research mentor. The three of you are all going to be on the paper, but the research mentor is doing the publication part of it, the part that you don't want to do, and you're doing the clinical or career development part, right? That's what you're putting in the game. Maybe your hospital or has some academic stipend, some pool of money available to do research, and you don't like to do research, so you never use it. Well, the researcher maybe would love to have access to that money. You say, oh, I'll make you a deal. Use my money for the thing, right? And have me involved, but I'll make sure I do something useful, worthy of co-authorship. But that way I don't have to drive the bus or do things that I want to do. But that way I'm bringing something to the table that helps you out as well. Win-win opportunities are great. I thought I'd show you just the ladder at our own place. Here's how the typical ladder works at Harvard Medical School. Everybody starts at instructor, and the idea is if you're an instructor, you should have a local reputation. Usually you get promoted to assistant professor sometime over the next 5 years, and you should show that you have a regional reputation at a thing. To go up to associate professor, 5 to 10 years after that, you should have a national reputation. And frankly, most of our faculty reach associate professor, and most don't go on to professor. And then to be professor is a very high bar. It's 10 or 20 years after that, and you should have an international reputation as a thing. So I would say we have tons of faculty at Harvard Medical School. In fact, the majority of our Harvard Medical School faculty are instructors and assistant professors. And if you are an outstanding clinician educator and you are awesome at seeing patients and awesome at teaching residents, you will be an assistant professor. It's fine, but that is the system here. To be an associate professor, you basically need to be publishing and doing great stuff. And to be a professor, you need to be doing great stuff in a big way consistently. And our ladder, and this is different places have different things. Some places will have like a clinical ladder and an academic ladder. At our place, there's really just one ladder, but you can attack it one of three ways: clinical expertise and innovation, which is most of our faculty; teaching and educational leadership, which is not that you're a great teacher, it's that you are an innovator in how to teach; and then investigation, which is that you are really a scientist. So the minority of our faculty do these two things. And then I'll show you how is it at our place. There are no formal rules at Harvard about how many papers, how many talks, how many grants you get. So, but I've been serving on these committees for a while, and I have colleagues who have, and I will tell you, this is sort of what usually comes up. If you're going to get to be an assistant professor, you should somehow, some way show that you're a local or regional expert at something, that people locally are using your expertise or your innovations in their practice, that you are publishing articles, preferentially original research, preferentially your first as senior author, preferentially in your thing, whatever your thing is, that you're giving local and regional presentations, bonus if you're at the national things, that you're on local committees relevant to that you're sort of serving the community in helping improve the local standard of care, and bonus is extramural funding in that area. Associate professor, typically you should be a national expert in something. And it's not that you are a national expert, frankly, it's that it looks like you're a national expert. And we can all, those are two subtly different things. We can all agree. You could actually be an expert, but it doesn't look that way. And you could actually suck, but look like an expert. And probably you all know people who are across that spectrum. And the magic for promotion is you have to look like a national expert, whether you are or not. And so that's, how do you somehow show people that? How do you capture metrics that say that? So ideally, you can have some sort of evidence that people nationally are using your knowledge, your skill set, your innovations, things you've done to influence practice, that you've published articles, ideally original research, ideally as first or senior author, etc. You're getting invited to write reviews, chapters, things like that. Some may say that really chapters and reviews don't help you. It's not true. First of all, everything helps. But your ideal candidate sort of has a portfolio showing that you are an expert in a thing. And a great way to show that you're an expert in a thing is you published a novel way to do lung ultrasound, and you're invited to speak about that novel way to use lung ultrasound, and you've been invited to write reviews and editorials on your novel way to do that, etc. You publish the national guidelines on the use of that lung ultrasound, right? You're a member of the National Ultrasound Committee of how to do that kind of ultrasound. You're in a leadership position in these committees. These are all ways that you show people what an expert you are. How do you tell somebody who knows nothing about your field, who's not in your field, what can they do to look at your CV and see, that's the kind of thing that shows me this person is a high level person. And I'll skip professor because these are junior faculty here. I can tell you if anybody wants. Mentorship. I'm going to move on. So I'm going to pause for the ladder. If you have any more questions about sort of laddering, let me know. Happy to speak up. My next step is I was going to talk about mentorship. Great. And this is a really, really important thing, and don't discount it. And don't discount having this done well. You, as a junior faculty member, should, if you don't know who your mentors are, and if it's unclear to you, something's not right, and you should fix it, because you should have at least a few people who, if somebody would ask them, they would say, yes, I am one of so-and-so's mentors, and they should feel committed to that role. And you, as the mentee, should know what are good practices for mentors and what are good practices for mentees. There's a lot of papers and literature about that. My number one recommendation is find a few people if you don't already have them. They could be in your institution. They could be outside of it. They could be in your department or outside of it. At least one of them should understand the ladder at your own institution. What gets people promoted? What are promotion committees looking for? Somebody that you are talking to that is your mentor should know that. And then ideally, you have more than one person. You do want more than one voice, more than one opinion, and they do not need to be in emergency medicine. These should be whoever it is that you need to make your career successful. Could be a public policy person if that's your interest. Could be an education person if that's your interest. Could be a radiologist if that's your interest, unless they're all the enemy for you, clinical ultrasound folks. So what you're looking for is who is out there doing what you want, who has the kind of career that you want to have. What we really like is if there's somebody you can point to, like, I want to be just like her. She has built exactly the career I want. That's a great person to have as your mentor, because they can say, here's how I did it. May or may not work for you, but that person at least has scars from all the things that didn't work, has gold stickers from the things that did work, and has some insight into what you need to be successful. Here's some of the best practices in mentorship for mentors. A good mentor should be creating an environment for open communication. This should be somebody who you feel like you can come to them with real things. For example, I've been asked to write a chapter and I don't want to do it. My chair wants me to be on this committee, which I think is going to be a huge time sink and it's going to suck, and I don't want to do it. My chair said, hey, it would be great if we moved you to the nocturnist schedule. It would really help us out. If you want that, fantastic. But there should be, again, you're a junior person. If a high-level person asks you to do something, the ideal answer is not no. The ideal answer is always, I would love to do that, but I need to check with so-and-so, right? That there's somebody who's a gatekeeper for your time that you can comfortably have these discussions with. And that you can be open about whatever it is that comes up. Conflict. Wherever you are, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be somebody who's a jerk. Hopefully it's not going to be you, but honestly, sometimes it's going to be you. And you want somebody who you can have sort of really an open conversation. Somebody should be helping mentees clarify their career goals, identify problems and solutions. This should be somebody who you can have an open discussion about the problem and can actually be helpful with a solution. Somebody who shares stories about their own experiences, both good and bad. You want to hear about the scars and their failures. Somebody who can provide actionable advice and guidance and support, who can give realistic goals and expectations, setting milestones to monitor success, An ideal mentor would be not somebody who comes, who says to you, you know, you should write a few papers and chapters. Let me know when that's done. The ideal mentor should be, let's pick something. What are you going to write? When's it going to be done? Let's see, now it's March 29th. So do we agree that by June 1st, you'll have a first draft of that on my desk to review, you know, or May 1st? And then let's set a meeting and then put something on the calendar for June 1st to have a meeting to discuss the paper that you will have handed them by that time, right? And then if that doesn't happen, it's fine for that not to happen. Then there's an opportunity for you two to discuss why it didn't happen. I had too many shifts. I had this thing going on in my life. I didn't actually want to write the paper. If you just leave it as a go write stuff and let me know, that's not as helpful as really specific goals, milestones, and how do you measure whether things are moving forward? If you feel like things are not moving forward and you're sort of floating, the perfect world is you have somebody to help and write down, like, this is what success would look like. And if you're not having it, can be thoughtful and brainstorm with you why that's not happening and can work with you to beat down obstacles. Someone who will create the time for meetings. If someone does not have time to meet with you every 4 to 6 weeks, you may not need that, but sometimes you will need that. And somebody should be able and willing to make that commitment to you. And they should follow through on their commitments. If they commit to you to spend time and energy with you and thought, they should follow through on it. That's really what you're looking for in a mentor. I love, if you don't get a free coffee or lunch from your mentor, then they are not committed to your mentorship. Love that. Genius. Your ideal mentor is as I sort of discussed a lot of this, you feel comfortable with them having real open discussions. You literally have meetings on the calendar that really happen, explicit and realistic milestones, open discussion about when they always will need to be moved, but you should know why, and it should be your decision, and you should have a clear understanding of why and what that means and how you're going to use that information in the future. Action plans can be flexible, but change because you want them to change and because you have a reason. Best practices in being a mentee. You should communicate openly and honestly with your mentor, right? That's what they need from you. You should be proactively looking at how they work and how they manage people. You should know that they don't know everything. They have their own limits. When they fail to meet your expectations, you should be thoughtful about what you can expect from them. They may be busy and they may need you to manage them, right? They may need you to be a little bit proactive. Hey, should we make a meeting? When's our next meeting going to be? Should we pick a milestone? Best practice is for you to be willing to be a bit of a nudge, and they should be willing to take that. Prioritizing issues for them to address. You should be thoughtful about if you have 10 issues that have come up, which are the most important for them to deal with. Feedback to them. A great mentor is somebody who's happy to hear your feedback and say, boy, it was really useful when we had a meeting about X, Y, and Z. It was really not useful when you said, hey, listen, write 3 papers and call me back in a year. Be proactive, how to manage up. There's books about this. I'm also happy to talk with you, but how to manage your boss is a known skill set that people study and write papers about. So let's see. Dr. Melniker says, 2 domains of mentorship: content expertise and process expertise. Both are essential. Totally agree. You should have realistic goals and expectations. You should create the time for meetings, and you should follow through on your commitments. And if you're not following through, you should know why and be open and realistic. If you keep missing your deadlines that you created, you should not be saying, oh, I'm a terrible person. I'm a terrible faculty member. That's not the right answer. There's a systems answer. Maybe there's a time management problem you can work on. There's books on time management. I personally like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Please share books for Manage Up. I will hunt that down and get that to you. But I'll talk about negotiation. There's some great books on negotiation. Getting to Yes is really good, and how to have difficult conversations with people, even if they're above you, that accomplish goals that you want to accomplish. Hamid, your mentor needs to clearly know you want to do research, learn to do research, or just want to publish. All have great values and nothing wrong with any goals, but say it up front. Yeah. What if the reason you're not following through your commitments is you don't want to do research and you don't want to publish? Please be honest with your mentor about that. Otherwise, you're just dragging both of you along, and it's not a good experience. I'm going to write down books on how to manage up, so I can forward those along to this webinar to manage. Also, I'm going to take a moment. A lot of academic centers like ours have their own internal resources that every now and then you get an email on and you sort of delete it, but take a moment to look through what resources your hospital has and what your medical school has. And a lot of times they'll have sort of stock lectures about these kind of topics. And then follow up with your mentor. One of the things I find is super striking is a lot of us, we give patients advice. We expect them to follow up if our advice isn't working or if they're not getting better. We say, if your chest pain gets worse, right? We expect you to go back to your doctor or come back to the ER. Well, what if your mentor gives you advice, you try it and it doesn't work? Do you go back to your mentor and say, hey, I did the thing, it didn't work, right? If you're expecting that of your patients, that they're gonna poke their primary care doctor, my blood pressure is still high, I'm calling you back, right? And I'm gonna keep going back to my doctor while my blood pressure is still high and keep trying things. And I'm not gonna leave it up to my primary care doctor to be calling me. Same with you. If your mentor is giving you advice that's not working, you should be comfortable reaching back out to them. And if your mentor gives you advice and it doesn't work, follow up with them to give them that feedback. Make them a better mentor. You are a participant in making them stronger as they're making you stronger. I would strongly advocate that you should create a mentorship team of 3 to 5 people, and you have literal meetings with all of them to discuss career development a couple times a year, quarterly maybe, even if you're not getting things done. So I would say first, it's hard to get people in a room together. So a lot of people don't do this. They have individual meetings. The difference is if they're all in a room together and they all agree you should do X, that creates skin in the game. Now they're invested in that, right? They sat with their peers, right? I sat in a room with Hamid and Andrew Lateplo, and I said, you should definitely do this research project. I'll totally help you with it. And then 6 months later, we have another meeting, and Hamid said, so Goldstein, did you help with that project that you promised you were going to do? And I'm like, damn, I forgot, right? Now I'm embarrassed as your mentor in a way that I wouldn't have been if you had just come to me offline. So you're creating an environment and a psychology that they are committed to your success and that they have skin in the game for your success. Also, you want, even if you have a great meeting, you're going to do all this great stuff, and 6 months later you didn't do any of it, that's a great time to have the meeting, right? Because that's a great time to sit in a room and discuss why it didn't happen. You're not the only person who thought all this great stuff was going to happen and it didn't. Frankly, I don't know anybody who everybody I know has this long list of all the great things that they're going to do in the future, right? And then the future comes and a very short list got done or none of it. And what a great opportunity to discuss why. It's a systems problem. They sit in a room and say, I will work with you on that chapter. I will help sign you up to national committees. I will help get you, I will reach out to my friends to get you talks at other places and get you grand rounds. Then 6 months later, everybody says, so did you give all those grand rounds that you were going to give? Why not? You know, you're sort of creating a psychology. If one person also is not meeting your needs, you have others. When you only have one mentor and maybe they're not super awesome, you might not realize that, and you might not have any good ways to go. But if you have a couple different people, you have other people to bounce things off from. And last, the word sponsorship means more than mentorship. Mentorship is sort of advice and guidance. Sponsorship is somebody who's signing you up for things, right? Signing up for talks, putting your name out for committees. They're asked to write reviews and they don't have time, and then they reach out to you and they say, how about you do the review, right? Assuming that's something you want. If you are Hamid, if you are a division director or fellowship director, list the essential rules of the game for promotion and share them with your fellows and junior faculty. Review those during the annual meeting and make sure they know the rules. Totally agree. That is definitely your job as a division or fellowship director. So overall, to all of you, please actively seek and manage mentorship, be proactive, own the process, find people who are winning the game to help you play the game. This is so critical for academic success. Sell yourself. How are you going to make your case to the promotions committee, and how do you show them how awesome you are? So I'll start with scholarship. Just be aware, are you in the knowledge construction business or the knowledge dissemination business? They often reward the knowledge construction business, original research, more, but it doesn't mean that you can't make a great career in the knowledge dissemination business. And we can all agree that the knowledge dissemination business can be just as or more valuable, right? Constructing knowledge that nobody uses is not helpful. Go with your strengths and own them. If you love writing books and chapters, go big on that. But whatever it is you're doing, you should know how that is measured. So impact scores is one way. There's something called an H index, which is a metric that says how many papers you write and how many times they're cited. This is very common for researchers to sort of measure them. It assesses not just your productivity, but your citation impact. If you have no idea what this is, go to Google Scholar, and you can sign up to be on Google Scholar, and it calculates it for you. And the bigger the number, the more papers and citations of your papers there are. High impact journals, there's something called an impact factor, which is how often papers in that journal are cited. Higher impact factor is a better journal. So first, is it better to publish in higher profile journals? Sure, yes, that'd be great. But it is better to publish than not to publish. Papers do not get better with time. This is not a fine wine in front of you, right? Papers get worse with time. Get it out and move on. A weak journal is better than no journal. Know yourself and know your time. It is a bad use of your time to shop your paper around to 10 journals and be looking for the best possible journal to get it into and keep getting it rejected. You are much better off finding the right fit, get it in, publish, and move on. If you've been rejected a couple times, aim lower. Every single paper has a home somewhere. Every single paper you write, you should have a vision of, I will get this published, even if I have to go into the lowest profile journal or a predatory journal. I shouldn't say that, but I'm going to, because being out there somewhere is better than not being out anywhere. Your time is not wasted doing that. When you write a paper and you work really hard to get it published, that's a learning experience. This is how you learn and get better. You learn what reviewers are looking for. No one is born knowing how to publish. It takes practice. If you've written the world's best paper, and every single time reviewers say, you didn't do X, and you're like, but I did X, that teaches you that you're not explaining it well. Somehow you're not delivering your message. And they're giving you constructive feedback that your message is not being delivered well. If they're all saying, that's not the way to answer this question, but it is the way to answer that question, you're not explaining it. And you should be putting in your intro, the best way to answer this with a randomized trial. It's impossible to do a randomized trial in this space. It's unethical, it's expensive, it will never be done. We figured out how could we ever answer this question? The only possible way was to do it like this. And so we did it that way. And you put that in the limitations. Limitation, there's not an RCT. No one will ever do an RCT of this question. We did the best study one could ever do of this question, and so we did what we could. Some way to wordsmith it so people can understand it. Somebody asked, does anybody have a good list of AEUS impact factor journals? There is a list of emergency medicine journals ranked by impact factor. I will look that up, and if we have time, I'll try to wrap up quickly so I can look that up and share it. List of EM journals. You can if you honestly, you can Google search that, and there's a few places that have lists of EM journals ranked by impact factor. How else to measure? You do not have to be enslaved to impact factors. If you think there's a better way to measure it, know that, capture it, and then you put it on your CV when you go up for promotion. Number of downloads. What's your alt metric? Those of you who aren't, this is a way to measure. So I just put up one of my papers, and it says how often was it mentioned in news outlets, blogs, tweets, Facebook pages, etc. And so maybe your paper doesn't get cited a lot, because citations are other researchers citing you. Maybe actual clinicians use your paper all the time. And citations is not a good measure for you. It's what's not helpful is just to say, oh, people don't get why my work is so great. What's better is to say, here's a better way, and be clear on that. And maybe you even put it on your CV and tell it to promotions committees. And Dr. Eke, thank you so much for posting in the chat, journal impact factors, super helpful. If you're writing online things, great, wonderful. And how do you measure it? OLEM, you can say this is the #1 site as measured by views, downloads, etc. Whatever data that is, know what it is, capture it. Write it down and put it into your CV. And then when you publish it, sell it. Publish your paper, tweet your paper, and have your friends do that. Tweet out your friends' papers and have them do yours. And if you don't use Twitter, if whatever, if you put it on TikTok and have and do a little TikTok dance for your paper, and then have your friends do it, and then use it for their papers, right? Like or comment or whatever social media you use, cite your own work and your colleagues' work and have them cite you. So whenever you write a paper, cite your own papers on the same thing and your friends' papers on that topic, and have them cite you. So be thoughtful about that. Be reviewers. All journals need reviewers. This can be an enormous time sink and a waste, but it's not. But some of it is not a waste. So it's good practice to do this at least some, to have some experience reading other articles, writing a review, then read what the other reviewers wrote about the same thing and compare that to what you wrote. It helps you learn to write, helps you learn what the readers are looking for, and you want to put on your CV that you're being asked to review papers. And being asked can literally mean a lot of these journals, if you email and say, hey, I would love to be a reviewer, they would love to have you. Dr. Shakui, the citation is one that will bite you later. We in the ultrasound community are a narrow field, so you have to include people from other specialties and make the topic broad. Absolutely, totally agree. It's very hard when you write papers that the only readers are people who don't cite. It's harder. Try to be broad and let people outside your specialty know about your work. And similarly for publications, high impact factors outside of EM specific journals. Great to publish in non-EM journals. Again, shows people that you're publishing across a broad spectrum of things. Grant writing is its own skill. Find mentors who write grants. Practice. Training grants are great. K grants from NIH is a good funding line, good relatively speaking. Good money, it looks great. You need a mentor. It does not have to be at your own institution. It's a great way to show your work is so awesome that people will pay you to do it. But let me highlight this. Even if you don't get a grant, even if you don't think you're going to get a grant, if you have some sort of grant idea, and then you reach out to other people in your community who you think would be great at it, ask them to work with you on it. Ask them to be to be on the grant with you. Get their comments and thoughts. Then when you write the grant and submit the proposal, first, other people in the field have to review it and make suggestions. And then you don't get the grant, and you're like, well, son of a bitch, I wasted my time. Except that all those other people know what you're interested in and know what you're working on and know that you have good thoughts. And maybe they're writing their own grants and include you on it. And maybe if 5 of you write 5 grants and 1 gets funded, and now you're on the in-group, right? You're in the clique. And so then people in the field think about you, and they think about you when other interesting things come up, right? Who's the world expert on X? You know what? I remember this person was writing an awesome grant about it. I wonder whatever happened to the grant. Oh, they didn't get it, but now they know you. So it's even when you don't get the grant, it's an opportunity to think hard about the problem, bring other people in with you on it. NIH has an early career reviewer program. You can sign up to be a reviewer and review other people's grants. It's a great way to learn how to do that. Teaching, I won't spend much time on this, but you want to do some local and some national teaching. You can apply to teach at national meetings, reach out to your friends, give free talks to your friends, and have your friends give free talks for you. It's a good way to show you're a national expert. Learn to be a good speaker. Give the same talk over and over again. You practice it. Give the same talk at multiple venues. Zoom talks. Practice at this. I'm a little far away. We were actually just discussing before I came on. I'm a little far away. I really should be a lot closer, and I just can't. I can't help it. Good lighting. My lighting's just okay here. Zoom actually has a button you can touch up your appearance and smooth out your wrinkles. I don't know if you guys knew that, but I'll actually, after we're done on this, I'll click on it and I'll show it you guys. You can adjust for low light and you can smooth out your facial wrinkles. I feel like it looks a little weird. Hamid's laughing, but if you go to preferences video, it's one of the options. I'll do it after you can see me. Try to be interactive. Your hospital, online resources. It's worth picking a day and just dig through all this stuff. I've listed a couple here. American AAMC has some. There's this organization, facultydiversity.org, that has like this whole program. My hospital subscribes to it, so you can take it for free at Mass General or Harvard, and a lot of other institutions are signed up for it. And it's just all this free education for how to do this stuff. So overall, for promotions, know what the metrics are, decide who you are, what you want to do, and own it and be comfortable with that. Build your brand. Everything you do should be built around your brand. How do you show success? You should know that. How am I going to show other people that I'm great? Not expect them to just be able to tell. And last, treat your career as a marathon, not a sprint. Do things that are sustainable. Much better to do things you want to do that might take a few years than things that you hate that you're going to do for a year to do all this great stuff. You're pissed off, you're miserable, and then you quit. That's much worse. And I will stop there and be happy to do discussion and take questions. Actually, before I even do that, Dr. Yadav, very important to know the local game, your institutional academic ladder and metrics. Most universities starts at assistant professor, absolutely true. In UCLA, there's separate clinical teaching and research, and then they have a above scale professor that's above professor. So great to highlight that everybody has a game, and you should know what the game is. So I'd like to stop and take any questions, if there are any. Oh, advice for people who work at community hospitals. That's an interesting one. So let me ask this question. For those of you who work at community hospitals, are academic promotions a thing? By the way, I'm touching up my appearance right now. I don't know, can you tell the difference there, Hamid? I'm gonna untouch up. Wait, I'm gonna untouch up my appearance. Touch it up. It's kind of subtle. Adjust for low light.
You always look good to us.
I always look good, but I'm clicking adjust for low light on and off. So I actually had it. I had it off for this. I'll leave my appearance touched up for a little bit. Just look and see. I look so much younger. Thank you. I'm definitely going to keep it on the touch up from now on. Okay, so community hospitals. Again, know the rules of the game. A lot of places will have a track for awesome clinicians. And how do they know you're an awesome clinician? That's really what it comes down to. Maybe it's patient reviews or other staff members give you great reviews. And maybe you don't know, or they don't know how. We'll create a system to get some reviews. Create in your own department some award structure, right? In our department, we have a bunch of faculty awards. Some of them we just make up more so we can give each other awesome awards for how great we are. And then when you go to the promotions committee, you can say, I won the award for like best ultrasonographer and the best patient care person, and there was an award from the nurses. Make it happen. And it's
Full
totally
disclosure, I did not get one yet.
What was that?
Full disclosure, I did not get one yet.
You're next year, I'm sure. So let me start with Dr. Lin. Did I answer your question, or anything more specific about hybrid academic community hospitals? Great. A lot of hurdles when your university site is separate. Yeah, really go to your local, whoever is in charge at your local site, and say, how can we measure how great we are? Maybe you do a survey of the nurses, right? Somebody sends a survey to the nurses, who's great to work with, and the 3 people with best score get an award that year. And then that's something you can use to show people who has the best dispo time, or the best teaching of the nurses or other staff, things like that. Let's see, somebody Somebody says, I wrote a letter of recommendation for someone who is known to be a top clinician with regard to operation metrics. This person was able to mentor residents on operation stuff. Love that. I've also seen, for promotions, I've seen people use that kind of data for operations. This person is consistently in the top 5% of our metrics. Even better, capture a patient per hour. I've seen people include quotes from when they do the patient feedback. Dr. So-and-so was super awesome, spent lots of time with me. PAs or the NPs report, oh, Dr. So-and-so is always wonderful to work with. Capture that, write it down, keep it somewhere.
Dr. Goldstein, thank you for giving us this awesome webinar. And we're kind of running out of time. I don't know if the webinar will continue, but I want to jump in because I have two things that I'm dying to talk about. And number one is I'm getting some text about junior faculty and trainees getting scared of looking at the Harvard metrics that you just shared. And I just want to say that, it's very different from institution. And I do think that the Harvard metrics are a high bar, if you will. And so please, these metrics are very publicly available. You should be able to request the promotion metrics or even just Google them from your own institution and know what those requirements are for different levels of promotion. Please do not be discouraged.
I'll just add on one thing that Harvard would like to think that it is the hardest one. Like that's, I think that is their intent. So, you may have seen the single hardest place to get promoted at, metrics wise.
Well, this judge suggesting if I promote it, so everybody else can be promoted. Done. Don't worry about it.
Sounds
and
good.
then the second thing that I really want to bring up is that within the POCUS community, one of the upcoming big ticket item to discuss is digital scholarship and how should ABAM and our fellowships look at them. And I was wondering if you have any insights or opinions or recommendations about that.
I think that my guess is most promotions committees are behind the curve on that front. For example, I wrote a chapter in Rosen's Emergency Medicine on stroke a couple editions ago. Whoever writes the up-to-date chapter on stroke, more people look at that each day than probably have ever looked at my stroke chapter in Rosen's. And so there should be numbers. So what I would say is whatever you're doing online, the great thing about online education is you can gather that and show it to people. If you say, look, I wrote this thing that 10,000 people saw. Everybody knows that no textbook has, hardly any textbook will have 10,000 people reading that chapter. So I think the magic is capturing data and showing it to the promotions committee and you can say in there, this is how people learn these days. And so I'm teaching the way that current learners learn. That answer it? That's what we do at our place. And frankly, the Harvard, I gave you numbers, but the Harvard system does not actually have specific numbers. It's purely make the case that you are a national expert by whatever means. And it's pretty open. And so, if you wrote the up-to-date chapter and the e-medicine chapter and the ALEM chapter and the guidelines for it, that's a great way to make that case. And now we probably are at it.
I think definitely has more questions coming up. Feel free to reach out, Dr. Goldstein, myself, and Dr. Liu also. Feel free, any question, any comment, we are happy to hear them. I want to thank you, Dr. Goldstein, for excellent talk, for all you guys to be being here, and we really enjoy this excellent expertise that you shared. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you all for joining.
Thank SAM as well for providing us with all this platform that we are doing it. I promise that we are going to have in next 3 months, we are going to have a follow-up on getting more detail through these all these, like the outline that Dr. Goldstein already talked about it today. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to add that, you know, if you have any suggestions about what would be a really high value topics for your situation, it's probably the same for other people. And please send that suggestion to anybody at AEUS Executive Committee. We would be looking into it to bring these topics to really help everyone with their academic professional development. And again, thank you, Dr. Goldstein. That was really wonderful.
You're very welcome.